Hello everyone and welcome to Rips Report by Eastland County Today. I'm your host Levi Freeman. Today we're in Eastland County Museum with volunteer Terry Simmons. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Absolutely.
And taking some time to share everything that you've got going and a little bit about yourself. And we'll start with that question. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, Terry?
Well, everybody knows me. I'm from here, born and raised here, graduated here from high school. Work for the city of Eastland, and will probably be here until they plant me somewhere.
Wow.
You know, so
Eastland through and through.
all the way.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
What do you love most about Eastland?
Small town.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and that can be a love-hate. You know, it's a good bad. Small town is great. You know, everybody knows everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's not a good idea. Everybody knows everything about everybody, or tries to know everything about everybody, you know. But
Yeah.
it's Eastland, small town.
Yeah.
You know.
No, it's a great town.
Yeah, it's a good town.
What is, could you tell us a little bit about your background prior to volunteering here at the Eastland County Museum?
I've been a volunteer in different things. Was with the JCs many years ago here. With a volunteer fire department many years ago. The museum came up. I was working for the city as a contract employee, and when the museum, you know, Ed Alcorn, who helped start the museum, had a stroke, and so the museum was going to close. That was like in 2010, 2011. The city kind of got involved to help save the Eastland sign that's on the roof and keep it lit up. Mm-hmm. And then the museum went through a court action through the 91st District Court. They appointed a new board, and I was one of the people put on that board. And so I've been here ever since. Jeannie Griffin and I are the last two members of that first board. Mm-hmm. That was appointed by the court. And then I went to work full time for the city, so I'm pretty much city paid over there and volunteer over here. So,
Gotcha.
That's pretty much it as far as how I got involved with the museum.
Wow.
And we've just been trying to keep it open.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for all your volunteer work over all these years. I mean,
it's a group action. I have a great board. There's 8 of us on the board. And everybody's a great addition to the museum. Mm-hmm. Most of us, let's see, I guess there are 4 of us that are Eastland graduates on that board, 4 or 5. But everybody does a good job, and everybody has an interest in the museum and keeping it alive and keeping it moving. Always trying to come up with new ideas of how to bring people in.
Right.
That's you know, that's kind of a job, is trying to figure out new things to bring people into the museum. And so, you know, one of the things we do are these traveling exhibits. And so that helps.
So how long has the museum been open and around for now? The
museum opened, I believe, in 2005. I believe is when it opened. You know, when they came in and the Bradleys, both families of the Bradleys, they redid the Conley Hotel and put the memorials at the cemetery. And Brad Webb had already started working on this building. He had ideas of putting some businesses in here, coffee shop and some other little shops. And he was approached about putting the museum here. Okay. And so that's kind of when all of that started. I guess was probably in 2000, because I think they were trying to get everything ready for the 2005 homecoming. Okay. And so Eastland County Museum and Historical Society is how it was originally formed. And it was formed back when Roy Smith and Darrell Basham and a bunch of them got together and put the Gateway to the West, the big red Eastland County history book, together, and they're the ones that actually started the original Eastland County Museum and Historical Society. We later dropped the and Historical Society because we didn't want to be confused with the Eastland County Historical Commission. So
Yeah.
we dropped that part of it
Yeah.
when we took over. Yeah, I believe the museum opened maybe even prior to 2005. But and then Ed, who used to run the Majestic Theater,
Okay.
also was kind of the director, curator, whatever here until his stroke in 2010.
Okay. Wow. So over 20 years at least. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what are your current hours for people to stop by?
Right. Thursday through Saturday, 10 to 2 are our normal hours. We do open different times for different things. So we have special events or special exhibits or something going on. So we
Right.
may have some extended hours. But and at some point we're looking at the possibility of maybe opening up another day
Okay.
during those same times. But we haven't got that one figured out yet.
Okay.
And of course, our opening is by volunteers.
Right.
Everybody that comes that works, and so we either have some that work the entire 10 to 4, or we have some that work 10 to 12 and 12 to 2. So that's what it takes, is to keep the doors open as volunteers.
Yes. Yes. And this is free to the public.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely. We never charge. We have donation places, buckets and crocks everywhere, but no, we never charge. And as long as we can, we'll never charge.
Right.
Because we think it's too important for people to come in and see.
Right. So other than those donations, how else do you receive your funding?
We get money from the city each month through the hotel motel tax. And then we have a couple offices on the 3rd floor that we receive a little rent money from there.
Okay.
We get a little money each month from the county.
Okay.
So everything else is strictly donations.
Very nice.
So and it takes a lot.
Yes.
Our building was built in 1919, and we own the entire building. So we have to, pay all the utilities, and we have to all the upkeep and
Right.
and all of that. And we just last month had to put a whole new water line and city tap and city water meter in because our line broke, and we had to move it. And so that was a over $9,000 project. Luckily, the city was gracious enough to give that money back to us, so
Right.
and took care of it. So
Yeah. It's not easy keeping up with buildings over 100 years old. You know, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, we appreciate all the hard work and dedication to it. And why do you think people should come out and visit this museum?
Well, of course, it's Eastland County history, and especially if you live here and you don't know the history, you need to come and learn the history. Because with the society we have today, history's not important to people. They really don't teach much history in school, I don't think, anymore. And as they say, if you ignore history, you're liable to repeat it. And there's some history out there we don't need to repeat. We don't need to do away with it either. We don't need to hide it, erase it, or whatever, because it's history. We have to learn from it. So, there's lots of interesting things about Eastland County that people should, if they don't know, that it'd be great for them to come and learn. We have, the Santa Claus bank robbery from Cisco. We've got Bonnie and Clyde that attacked and robbed the Armory and Ranger on one of their sprees. We have Doc Scurlock, who's buried in the cemetery here.
Right.
Of course, our Eastland founders, Mr. Conley, Ammerman, and Daughtery, the history on them. The oil boom. I mean, if it wasn't for the oil boom, 90% of the buildings wouldn't be on this square.
Yeah.
Because they were all built during that time period.
Yes.
The history of Old Rip, and there's just lots of history that people don't know about that they don't see regularly.
Right.
A lot of people don't know about the stamp mural in the post office. We have an exhibit on Miss Johnson, who put that stamp mural together.
Okay.
Now we have the genealogy department. Wanda Skinner and others started this genealogy record keeping at the library many years ago, and there's just hundreds and hundreds of pages of family histories and all in the genealogy room.
Wow.
The library wanted the space, and so they moved the genealogy room to here. And we've brought in Nelda Rogers from Ranger, who is a she loves genealogy. She loves getting into people's family history. And of course, she's not certified or anything. She'd love to be, and she may do that at some point. But we've brought her in. She's kind of overtaking that room and getting it. We're still trying to get things cataloged and organized and things. So it's a great way to find your family history. But there's just lots of things. We have this little exhibit on a time before Texas, which is sort of prehistoric Texas. People don't realize that in the 20s, they found a mastodon skull at Mansker Lake, down below Lake Leon.
No.
And it is actually in storage with the University of Texas out in the Panhandle.
Really?
We've got a picture of it over here on the table, showing with one of the Hart boys who they found it when they were digging sand for the cement companies, which most likely that cement was being used to build all these buildings. And so they were digging and they found this mastodon skull. So we have prehistoric things here now.
Wow.
Besides arrowheads that people find in some of the old fossils, we have something that actually connects to Eastland. We don't have the original here. I'd love to have it.
Right.
But it's pretty neat to have that story.
Okay. I had a couple questions of things you might have in here. Do you have any artifacts from the old RIP time frame?
We don't actually have any artifacts. We have information on the old RIP. I guess basically the only artifacts would be the cornerstone and old RIP, and they're at the courthouse. So
I was curious if the Bible or the whiskey bottle. Or
I'd be curious to know where that ever went.
Yeah.
If that's anywhere in it may be at the courthouse or something. And some of their stuff, I don't know. It'd be great to have if it exists.
Right.
Of course, I always tell everybody when they say, "Well, how did he live that long?" Well, he sipped on the whiskey and ate the Bible. Somebody else says, well, now that whiskey probably seeped and that alcohol turned to sugar and it drew ants and bugs in. So that's how he was able to.
I could definitely see that.
So one of the things that we do have related to Old Rip, in a way, it's about horned toads, is we have the original bill that was brought to the state of Texas to make horned toads an endangered species.
Oh, wow.
It's framed and hanging over here in our exhibit.
Wow.
Yeah. Mr. Christie, who was with the legislation back in the day, he's the one that got that bill started, and he brought it to us a few years ago and presented it to us. So
that's really cool.
It's really neat to have that. So
is what would you say is the strangest artifact that you have in your collection?
Probably the chicken plucker that came from your grandfather. It came out of the old meat packing plant that's the library now, the old plant over there, and he gave it to us. And that always draws the cutest questions from the kids when they come in here, and we tell them what it is. Their number one question were the chickens dead? It's like, you don't want to tell them they didn't have a head and they'd been in boiling water. But we always just say, yes, they were dead.
They were dead. They were already dead.
But I guess that's probably the weirdest thing that we have. Now, in our medical collection, several years ago, the Golke family gave us the Dr. Golke's medical museum that used to be in Ranger. And it's up on the second floor. There's a lot of medical equipment there that
scary.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. You kind of wonder what it was ever used for.
Oh, man.
So some of those tools would be kind of weird, but as far as general, I would say the chicken pluck.
Okay. So you have some freaky stuff. You have some strange stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks to HV out there. Thank you.
Yes.
Papa.
Yes.
Is the chicken plucker the most popular thing here, or what would you say is the most popular thing people want to visit?
I don't know. Most people coming in, they're really not looking for one specific thing. The majority of our people in the past few years are travelers. And here lately we've had a lot of people come because they saw us on The Day Tripper, or they saw us on American Pickers, or something. And so a lot of them coming through are seeing us on those.
Okay.
But I don't think anybody really comes other than for that. Like the ones from the American Pickers, they like to come and see the story about the globe that we sold to the collector from that show.
Okay.
And we have a replica of it. The Wolf brothers had a replica made, so we would have it, be able to keep and tell the story. But right. Most people don't come specifically for one thing.
Okay. Well, you mentioned the American Pickers, and I realized that they came, a few years back. Mm-hmm. Is there anything like that in the works or something you would like to do in the future, or what else do you have coming up?
I don't have anything TV-wise coming. I keep bugging J.B. Salceda, who's the new Texas Country reporter. I keep bugging him, trying to get him to come. Bob Phillips came many years ago. I've also sent information to the guy with the bucket list. Yeah. He came several years ago. Mm-hmm. And so I'm trying to get them to come back and do an updated story on us. Like I said, we had the Day Tripper last year. And so really anything like that, I'm not... other than just trying to reach out to them and get them to come back and do stories. I don't really have anything else really in the works that's been confirmed. We have applied for an exhibit from the Smithsonian that we will probably know sometime in June if we're able to get it. They just had a Smithsonian exhibit at Buffalo Gap. I forget what it was called. This new one is called Spark, and they're trying to put it out in the more rural areas. Okay. And it's through the Texas Historical Commission, and so we've applied for that. We'll know in June whether or not we get that, and it'll either be in 26 or 27 for when that comes, and that's a pretty big thing for it to be the Smithsonian. So hopefully it will attract a lot of people. As far as something big, that's about it that we have really in the works. We've got some smaller exhibits coming. June, we have mid-June through July, we have an exhibit on crochet coming that we think will be kind of pretty neat. Yeah. In October, we're going to put one together. The crochet one is kind of pushed some of the board into thinking about it. And we have some old quilts. We're going to do a quilt exhibit. Wow. And so, and then in November, we have an exhibit coming, and it's on women that were in World War II, I believe is what it is. And then in, I believe, September of 26, we have one. It's called Momentous, and it's about Texas and the football moms. Texas and southern states are really the only ones that do the moms. And Texas is really big with it, and it's an exhibit about that. We tried to get it for football homecoming this year, but it was already taken. So we're going to have it next year for around homecoming. Nice. So we think that'll be kind of a fun one. Yeah. I like that idea. But right now, that's kind of what's in the works, or what we've already signed up for. Right. So. Well, Rip's report we'll have to do for now. Absolutely. Absolutely. But we wish you best of luck, and hopefully the Smithsonian approves that. Yeah, that would be big. We're hoping that all the funding cuts didn't affect that one. It has affected our exhibits small ones like this one, that come from Humanities Texas, because they get their funding from the National Endowment for the Humanities, and National Endowment for the Humanities funding was wiped out. Yeah. So we're hoping that enough pressure will be put and that'll come back, and because federal funding is what keeps little museums and so many things with the arts and all alive. It keeps them going, so hopefully those things will change. Yeah. So. Is there anything else you would like our audience to know about? Anything else on your mind? No, just come to the museum. We love having people come in. We love telling the stories. We have old Rip T-shirts for sale. We have horny toad jewelry for sale. All the ladies need horny toads on their ears or around their neck. No, it does look good. It does look great. So we have some books that are kind of history related. We've got a book on Ranger. We've got a book on Hilton from Cisco that a lady from Cisco wrote. We've got a book on Doc Scurlock that his great-great-granddaughter and another friend wrote. We've got the book, The Last Man, that Mr. Goodman wrote, that was released just a couple of years ago, about the last man from the Santa Claus Bank robbery. One thing that we do have from the Santa Claus Bank robbery, it just reminded me, is we have a beaded purse that Henry Helms made for his wife while he was on death row, waiting to be executed.
Wow.
And that family sent that to us a few months ago with some more information. The Santa Claus Bank robbery is a great story too.
It is.
And I wish somebody would take it and make a movie.
Yeah. I would be interested, over at the Lyric if we did a play.
Yeah,
adaptation
they
would
used
be
to do
cool.
one at a musical at Cisco College.
Yes,
so,
yes.
Yeah,
Doing something like that again would be great.
Yeah.
Now we're going to move into a little fun section of our interview today. And since this is the Rip Report, you have to ask a few questions inspired by old Rip the Legendary Horn Toad. Who or what would you like to rip a new one?
I guess I'll get political here. The federal government for their funding cuts, because they're not saving the federal government money. One, it's a waste to do some of the things that are doing, but they're hurting people. They're hurting museums. They're hurting the arts. They're hurting, health care and everything out there. It's awful what they're doing, because, like I said earlier, so much of funding from museums, arts, libraries, whatever, comes from the federal government, and every dollar that they think that they're saving, there's lives out there that they're really hurting. So
yeah,
I guess
I understand
guess I'd
it's a balancing act for
Yeah.
sure, and then
and I'm sure there's waste out there. We've all heard the horror stories about that a hammer cost the federal government $10,000 or something.
Yes, yes.
That's ridiculous. And there's way to cut funds without just going in and wiping out funding totally without really researching it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I appreciate your candor on that answer. If someone opened a time capsule 31 years from now, what's something of yours they'd be surprised to still find kicking like old Rip?
Maybe my cell phone.
Yeah.
What is technology going to be like in 31 years? Even internet. Yeah, technology is something that it's so fast moving right now. And AI.
Yes.
Where's AI going to be in 31 years?
Yeah.
And then
hard to fathom.
maybe say in 31 years, me. But yeah, that's a good question, because there's lots of things that you could think, but the changes, the technology is just changing so fast.
Yes. So. Well, I'm just glad we don't have to put the chicken plucker in a time. I'm glad we don't have that hanging around anymore. I'm glad it's here for you. Lastly, how can people get a hold of you in the museum?
We have a Facebook page. We have a website, eastlandcountymuseum.com. We're here at 114 South Seaman. Telephone 254-631-0437. And just come down and walk through that door.
Yeah. Best way is in person.
Absolutely, in person. Just come down and.
Yeah, well, this is a lovely museum. I'm definitely going to spend more time in it in my future.
Great. Yeah.
And thank you so much, Terry Simmons, for your time again, being on Rip's Report. And thank you for being a press club member and supporting Eastland County Today. And y'all at home, if you've enjoyed this interview, feel free to like, subscribe, leave a comment below. We do appreciate each and every comment. And until next time, this is Levi Freeman with Rip's Report from Eastland County Today. Stay ripped out there.